because it was just criminalized throughout history, like 420, bro. So that's why cannabis is so powerful. Has sleeping problems, and I know he would really, really benefit from this brownie. So she put it in her purse. He asked me the question, he's like, have you printed it on the wall yet? And I'm like, yes, we have. It's up, man.
It's totally there.
It's there. Anyway, so took it down, put the big cannabis leaf up. And then after a while, this guy down the road set up a Google My Business called like Buy Cannabis, or the businesses around like Buy Cannabis. And it's just down the road. And it's a short road. It's just a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
It's because he knew people were coming to us for cannabis. So he was hoping they get confused, click his one, contact him, and so that he could sell them cannabis.
He was illegally selling them weed?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he set up a Google My Business?
Yeah.
You have to respect the hustle.
It's a good one, right? It's a good idea.
You have to respect, like the guy sat down and seriously thought, the foot traffic is up the road. My ideal customers are there.
Yep.
They have money, or they're willing to at least come and pay for this product. Did it work? Did you ever have people walk in and be like, oh, we saw Jerry down the road?
Well, if they walked in and met him, they might have never come back.
They might have known enough.
A churned customer.
Wow. That's genius.
Yeah. So that was down the road. But yeah, so that's
Okay.
the table. That's the table outside.
The table wasn't an HR table.
The table was our meeting table.
Okay.
All right.
The peace table, right? That's what I tell my kids. There's
Peace
a peace
table,
whenever they have a
negotiation
fight, they
table.
sit down and they have a discussion and make sure nobody gets fired.
Yeah, we had a few meetings on that table. But, anyway, it was in one of the rooms. We actually ran out of space, so we chucked it outside. And that was.
I don't think we have a table like that here, actually. It's probably the boardroom. The boardroom's probably the HR meeting room, but the glass is so thin. As soon as there's a serious meeting that happens here, you'll notice, right? Because I'll always sit here, because then I can look outside.
Yeah.
And you'll notice you're having a conversation and you see little heads just go. Like just a very brief, like, what's happening? Nothing. Oh shit, he sees me looking. just come in and ask at this point. Like, it's okay. I'll tell you what's happening.
What, like a little bunny had come?
Yeah, just a little like meerkat that just goes, boop, like nothing happened. You know, it's
Heads or a head?
Oh, I've seen Anders do it for sure. Yep. Yeah, Anders 100%. Haven't seen Shaq do it, but that's because Shaq normally knows what's going to happen before it happens.
Oh, yeah. So there's no surprise.
No curiosity there.
Yeah.
Ahmed will just obliviously just turn around and just stare at you while it's happening. So there isn't like a head bopping down. He's just like, what's going on there? TJ's too in the zone. And I think Max finds out through Anders. So Max often won't do it. He'll just wait for Anders to
Just to tell him the goss.
Yeah, Max will wait for a Discord message or a text message to find out what's going on.
But you've got the curtain. You can't see through it, can you?
No, you can. You totally can. Yeah. So that's why I always sit on this side, because at least if someone's crying, then they won't see. I'm kidding.
Interrogation table.
Yeah. But we've had some good fun. There have been times where we've had meetings in this room. Like I've had a serious meeting with Shaq before, and it hasn't been bad. It's been a positive meeting, and I'm like, so we're going to go out and we're going to pretend that you're leaving. The food in America is shit. I don't care what anyone says. There's some places that are great, but generally speaking, the coffee was absolutely abysmal. Tasted like just bitter piss, like nothing good about it. And it was watered down everywhere. And then, we ordered Indian, and it tasted nothing like Indian. And we ordered it from an Indian place. We sat down around the floor eating it. We're like, Shalaka was like, this is shit. When the Indian turns around and goes, this is abysmal food.
Yeah.
But it was.
So was it like New Zealand Indian food?
Yeah, but it wasn't like New Zealand Indian food. It was way worse. We're talking. You remember the Indian place at uni?
Oh, for sure, man. That was classic.
Okay, so you
Like
remember
the butter chicken.
The butter chicken, right? And
Yeah.
there was enough food coloring there that it was just, and it colored the concrete, right? All the way to the drain. Now, that place wasn't high quality Indian food. It was good, but it wasn't like top caliber. It was about as bad as it could
They're
get.
still going, I think. They're still there.
Nah, they weren't, bro. Oh, maybe. I think the kebab shop is closed. Last time I went there, the kebab shop is definitely gone. I can't remember if the Indian place is gone. But I remember
I
one
went
day.
back. I went back. Must have been 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Good curry
Just
still.
to, well, it was just to relive that butter chicken
Yeah.
experience, man. But it was
and
still
the
there.
fries.
Yeah, and the
The
fries.
fries. Oh,
That
dude.
was- but back in the day, it was like I remember you could get something for under $10, like it was
$6.50.
for the little
The
one.
small one
The
was
small one.
$6.50.
Yeah,
And then it ended up being $13 by the time I left. And I was like,
yeah.
can't afford this anymore. I just want $5 kebabs.
It must be like $20 now.
Oh, dude. I hope not. We should go back. We should relive that memory. So that butter chicken was about 12 times better than what we had in the States.
That's interesting. Maybe they'd had too much cannabis while cooking it, man.
Maybe. No spice, nothing. Anyway, okay, cool. So that's what the table was for outside.
That's what the table was outside.
What
for.
about the staff partaking and testing the strains that you get into the company?
So the staff partaking in quality testing the strains. Well, you have to be. What's the number one rule of marketing? You know,
Well, yeah, you have to understand what the hell you're selling for one.
correct?
Yeah.
But it's authenticity, right?
That's true.
It's not about ripping people off or
No.
just squeezing money out of them. It's about being authentic and actually having something of genuine value to offer people. So how do you be authentic? Well, you have to know what you're selling, right?
I don't know if you realize you've gone full Jordan Peterson.
Jordan
So
Peterson.
you realize that? So how do you be authentic? You have to know what you're selling.
Who the hell is Jordan Peterson?
Don't do this to me.
Who's Jordan Peterson?
Do not do this to me. Are you serious?
I'm serious, man.
Bullshit.
Nah,
This is a
seriously.
prank. Say wallah.
Who's Jordan Peterson, man? Who's Mr. Peterson?
I was about to flip the table. I'm waiting for you to do this under the table. I'm waiting for you to be like, well, you have to know what you're selling. Is it genuine? Oh, man.
Quality control.
100%. Okay, cool. So the staff, the company is authentic and believes in the product that it's selling.
That's correct. I think it's still a prescription medicine. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're still prescribing.
So do you
medicinal
prescribe
cannabis.
the staff?
So people, yeah. So we say to people, look, there is, just because working here, you still can have a consultation, go through the normal process.
Yep.
But it's a
Do they get mates rates?
there is a staff discount. Yes, there is, absolutely.
So if somebody is passionate about the industry, amazing at their job, and they have a lot to offer and want to take advantage of said staff discount, they just have to work their ass off and find a way to get a job there?
Correct.
Okay.
We don't advertise that perk, obviously. It's not
Oh.
on Seek. We've got a few Seek ads, and there's a benefits section. And discounted cannabis is
But-
not one of them.
But if you want top tier talent, where they're going to come in, they're going to do an amazing job. That's one of the perks.
It's one of the perks.
Now, what was level 3 of that questioning?
Then the first question was about me.
Yeah.
Now that's a hard one. That's a hard one, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Are you? I'm happy for you not to answer. I'm okay.
I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, go on.
How should we say this?
It's such a
There
gray
is-
area.
It's a
Such a gray area, isn't it?
now, like the honest truth is no. The honest truth is no. Like,
Okay.
because I'm more interested in the space out of interest, not from a personal like use perspective.
So you were interested in the science and how it can Look, let's get serious for a second.
Not really the science. I'm actually
Okay.
interested in people's wrong perception of it. Like the idea
Tell
that
us
you can,
about this.
See, the idea you can walk up to someone, right, and you can start talking to them about cannabis, and then you can have people who are so differentiated in their views. It's a very divisive topic, right? You've got people who are very pro, and they would be like, "Wow, you're doing something amazing," or then there's people who are obviously very taken aback, like,
Why do
"Whoa,"
you think that is?
because it was just criminalized throughout history, like the 1920s onwards, criminalization, pharmaceuticals, where cannabis was pushed proactively outside of mainstream. Because you could imagine, so back in 1900, right?
Yeah.
You rock up to a doctor.
When they had, what, cocaine inside of a Coke bottle or something?
That's all they'd use is just plant-based stuff.
Yeah.
That's all they'd use. And cannabis was just an important part of it. So it was just normal, so accepted. Plant-based stuff, plant-based medicine. So then you go through a period of criminalization, and then it was proactive. So you'd have, for example, and you can look this up on Google, right? There'll be posters where there'd be like the picture of a joint or the cannabis leaf, and it would say, "Beware, this plant can kill you. If a stranger hands it over to you, then beware." So basically, instilling fear into people is going to kill you. It's bad for you. It's addictive. There's going to be there's strangers who are going to offer this to you and give it to you.
Sounds like a date rape drug.
Oh, totally. That's how it was portrayed.
Interesting.
So then you go through that period, all through that period of time, and so then no wonder, in this day and age, more so in the generations that come, say from from the 1950s, 60s onwards, say up to the 90s maybe. That's when there's a bit more openness to it. This things start changing. You've got Canada that started the legalization process and what have you in the early 2000s. And so then the understanding changed, because if you're born in the 90s, but when you're in your teenage years when those changes are happening, but you start having a more open mind. So am I in with the product? Like I've definitely tried some of the products.
Sure.
For sure.
Okay.
I definitely tried some of the products, and I tell you what, man, they're good. They're good, but it's not the.
I think where people get lost in a lot of this, right? Because there's two sides to cannabis, and I think it's important to discuss both sides. You've got your recreational use of the drug, right? And it's funny because I don't know if you fall into the same trap, but when we talk about recreational drugs, and then we talk about medicinal drugs, there's this weird disconnect that happens, because medicinal drugs are all of a sudden under a different umbrella where it's totally fine and it's okay. But fentanyl kills people every day, right? By the thousands. It's a freaking epidemic in the States. And then all of a sudden, for now anyway, marijuana is in this other category where you just imagine a bunch of stoners playing video games at home, right? But if we take a look at its recreational use versus its medicinal use, and then you compare that to other recreational elements that are out there. So let's say if you compare cannabis to cigarettes or alcohol, and if you look at it from the aspect of harm, what do you think causes more harm? And I mean, this is controversial, and some people are going to be like umming and ahhing about this, but facts don't care about feelings, right? So like 93% of all violent crime is somehow related to alcohol, or can be traced back to being caused or at least being contributed to by alcohol. What do you think actually does more, even recreationally, putting the medicinal stuff to one side?
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
What do you think does more harm?
Of course, alcohol is more harmful, and so is smoking.
So why do you think people have this? Do you think it's just really good marketing that people have this negative connotation towards stoners versus people that, you and I might meet every day, and they'll go home and have a 6-pack, not in the gym, but in the lounge, and they think that's totally fine. But if they think about a person having a joint once a week or whatever, all of a sudden,
and being happy and relaxed, that's a bad thing. It's totally societal. It's just society views, because it's the way that the messaging is being put forward. Like you should look it up, because it's the same tactic of instilling fear into people. It's a very powerful way of controlling the narrative. You can look it up, the various ads that were made against cannabis in the early 20s up to the 30s, 40s, 50s. It's all about fear. And that's what happened with for example, COVID. It's all a fear-based response. You're going to die. This is really bad. You're under threat. You're under attack. I mean, you look at even politics. That's what they use. The war against weapons of mass destruction. You remember that? And then hallelujah, there's no weapons, but it was just
Operation Iraqi Liberation, and then they realized it spells oil, so they had to change that very, very quickly to Operation Iraqi Freedom.
But I'll tell you a funny story. So we use this to our advantage. So and we just have fun with it, right? So I'll give you an example. We had a GP conference in Christchurch and in Rotorua. The biggest. This is like the main GP event, right?
Okay.
Doctors come from all around the country to this thing. They get their continuous medical education points, their traveling, accommodation, what have you, and we set up a stall as the cannabis clinic. So we've got the cannabis clinic there in the middle of, smack bang in the GP conference.
Yeah.
So I said to the team, I said, look, a stall is boring. Like, people are going to walk up. It's either how do you prescribe this stuff? What does it do? Informational.
Or they'll think you're charlatans and turn away and not even look at it.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So and we like a bit of fun, right? So it's like, how do we spice this up a little bit?
How do we disrupt?
How do we disrupt? Let's add a bit of spice to the butter chicken, Let's make this a bit spicy. What do we do? Well, guys, the people give away free products. Can we give away free products? No, we can't, because we'd get into trouble. I mean, we could try, but we'd get in trouble pretty quick. So I said, look, people are scared of cannabis. So we went online and I bought the best look-alike fake cannabis plant that I could find, and it looks pretty damn realistic.
Okay.
With this little pot, soil.
Is it like is it an actual plant, or is it a fake plant that is designed to look like can you kill it, is what I'm saying, or is it made of plastic?
It's plastic.
Okay.
But from a distance it looks real.
Okay.
So I bought the best one, a couple of them that I could find. I said, look guys, we're going to put this on the table. While this is ongoing, there was a little bit of panic about what the repercussions of this could be, right?
Sure.
Because you're in the middle of a GP conference and we're talking about, let's put a cannabis pot plant in the middle of our table while we're talking. So that was step number one. Then I said, look guys, we can't give free products away, but we can make some brownies and give some brownies away at the GP conference.
Okay.
So they said, okay, great, yeah, let's give away some brownies. So I said,
do these brownies have anything special in them?
well, this is the you gotta hold it, you gotta hold people in suspense. You see.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
then I said, right, well, people are obviously going to start associating brownies and cannabis. How do we make it, spice it up a bit more? So he said, well, look, let's slap some cannabis clinic stickers on every single brownie to make sure that people know this brownie is from the cannabis clinic.
Yep.
So we individually wrapped all the brownies and we put cannabis clinic on them. And so there was a bowl of these brownies and a cannabis plant. And you'd be like, the results were hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
What are some of the things that happened?
So on one of the occasions, we had a couple of the team members, a couple of the girls down there. And they gave us, everyone was coming up, oh, brownies. I heard you guys are giving brownies, getting all the brownies. So they were going, and they were, being taken. So this one lady takes it. Then the next morning, first thing in the morning, she comes back to the store. She's a GP. She's an older lady, so quite an experienced GP. So she comes up to our two girls and says, hey guys, this brownie from yesterday was absolutely amazing. I had the best night's sleep I've ever had, ever. Can I have another brownie, please?
No way.
And so then, our two girls are sitting there. They don't know what to say, because what do you tell this experienced doctor who's coming to you?
I have to ask, was there anything in it? Is this placebo or was...
No, there was nothing in it. It was just a brownie.
Holy shit.
It was just a normal brownie. We're just trying to cause attention
Stir
and
a bit of-
controversy.
yeah.
So then the girls are the looks on their face, like their expressions just changed, because they were like, what do I tell this person? Like, do I break the information, or do I hold it back and go along with the flow and give another brownie?
How would it just kept the suspense going? What did they do?
So there was a silence that was long enough, awkward enough, and the facial expressions changed enough where the doctor, within that silence, started to click, put two and two together. She, and her face changed, and she said, "Wait, they didn't have anything in them."
Maybe you just ate really well. Like that was a day that you ate good food.
And then another funny thing happened. Then, approximately a couple of weeks later, this guy rocks up to our clinic, and he says, "Hey guys, I've got one of your brownies," and apparently, and he was like happy about it. Apparently, what had happened is one of the ladies that took our brownies from the GP conference, she was a doctor, and she thought the same thing. So she said, "Oh, all right, this is really good. Actually, my son has sleeping problems, and I know he would really, really benefit from this brownie." So she put it in her purse. You know how it's like, mum's purse. It has a bit of everything,
Of course, man.
bit of loose change,
Find
cards,
anything
phone,
in it. Yeah.
keys.
You ask your mum, like, yo, where's the meaning of life in my purse?
It's in the purse. Including cannabis. Cannabis also lives in the purse now. So she took it with her from Christchurch, flew it up to Auckland in her purse, went and gave it to her son, who happened to already be a client with us, and he rocked up with our cannabis brownie. So we're here 2 weeks later, we get our brownie back.
Did he have it after 2 weeks? It still might have been good,
Maybe, man, maybe.
What? So that's really interesting, because what that tells me is that the sentiment within the medical space with GPs, for example, at least there are people out there who understand that this could genuinely be medicinally beneficial. I'm not talking with the general population. I'm talking within the medical industry, within medical professionals. Have you, A, seen that shift over time, and B, what do you feel that doctors and GPs generally think about medicinal cannabis? How do they perceive it now?
It's definitely changing. They're becoming more and more open-minded to it, The shift that's going. Initially, there was a lot of skepticism and reluctance, which there still is. Like, we're doctors, man. In my experience of medicine, we must be one of the most rigid thinking groups of people out there. We're pretty rigid in our thinking, but it takes years, and it takes time, and it takes education, and it takes us to do what we do to a lot of people. And then, so what happens is usually we'd see someone, we'd be open-minded, we'd help them, they'd get their life back, and then they'd sing our praises, but they'd go back to their GP, and then their GP would be like, this is what I've been trying to do for the last decade with you. And then all of a sudden, this cannabis clinic comes along and does it like that to you. Maybe I need to look into this cannabis stuff they're talking about. What is this? What have they prescribed you? Let me check this out.
Can I get some? Have you had that? Have you actually had, out of curiosity, have you had doctors who have been skeptics previously who have had personal ailments that they've, I don't know, put a Band-Aid on with conventional medicine?
Themselves, you mean personally?
Themselves.
Yeah.
And then they've tried cannabis as a solution and completely did a 180.
Definitely. Doctors, nurses, specialists.
I'm going to bring, this is going to be controversial. Again, anything you don't want to talk about, we don't have to talk about, right? But I will bring faith into this for a second. Look, and again, this part can stay separate, right? But we're both, alhamdulillah, we're both Muslim, right? And we both have a faith-based approach to, I'd say, the way that we see the world and our boundaries, etc., our moral compass. How have you found, because there are areas within our community which are still either untraversed or there's skepticism or there's still a lot of old school thinking. Like you'll have parents that'll happily give their kids steroids, or give them really, really harmful drugs thinking that it comes from a trusted source and it's got a Pfizer logo on it, so it's totally fine.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, when it comes to the idea of medicinal cannabis, it's viewed as either haram or the boogeyman, right? Have you faced any challenges from within the general sort of Muslim community, and how have you dealt with them, or how are you seeking to educate the different areas of not necessarily your customer base of society whose opinions come from a different motivation, right? How have you dealt with that?
I haven't dealt with it. You just let it go, and whatever it is, it is. Look, at the end of the day, like, you get one life. Life's too short. So who gives a shit what people think? You know, life's too short to worry about it. If people think it's the right thing to do, they think it's the right thing to do. If they think it's the wrong thing to do, well, that's their problem. It's not my problem that they think it's not religiously acceptable or religiously unacceptable or whatever. That's their baggage to carry.
Have you had this conversation with your parents when you first got into this? Were your parents kind of like, "Hey, are you sure about this?" Did you go through like a part with? Because
I didn't, but they don't. Deep inside, they don't approve.
Really?
Yeah. And I told my mum this. I told my mum this. I said, because it becomes really annoying. It becomes one of those like annoying things. I was like, just avoid this topic because not here, but like when I'm talking to my parents, because I know like it only leads in one road, one direction. So I told my mum, I said, Mum, you know what's going to happen, and when I say something, the universe will listen and it will make it happen. It will come to you, right? So I said, Mum, this is going to happen. You will be walking one day, right? You're going to bump into someone, a friend or a colleague or someone. You're going to start talking to them, and then they're going to tell you a personal life story about how their life was shit and how they stumbled across medicinal cannabis by the cannabis clinic.
Yeah.
And it changed their life. And it's going to be mentioned to you in a personal conversation from someone you know. And then you're going to remember me in that moment, and you're going to think, right, actually,
maybe
my son said this. Maybe there is something here to question that belief.
Did it happen?
Not yet, but it will happen.
It'll happen.
It will happen.
Dude, this is where, look, I'm pretty conservative, right? In our company, we don't deal with the alcohol industry. We don't deal with the tobacco industry. There is industries we just won't do business with, right?
Yep.
And that's to each their own. We do business with the cannabis clinic, right? Because my opinions of it, I know.
Disappointing.
But my opinions of it are genuinely, like, if you take a look at, like, I know for a fact that there are farms in Afghanistan where opioids are grown, and the opioids get shipped to good old Pfizer and Moderna and et cetera, and then they get turned into drugs, and those drugs eventually end up killing people, ironically, and helping others.
Yeah.
So I know, and even, we're going to get theological for 5 seconds, but even when it says that Allah's created a cure for everything other than death, where do those cures exist? They exist in nature, right? So I'm a firm believer that medicinal cannabis, to me anyway, is just like any other medicine. And the closer you are at something being in its most natural form, the better it is for you, except for potassium cyanide, right? Like, I get that. And again, everything's also based on its nia. Like, if you're going to smoke to get high, then you're going to reap whatever rewards based on whatever your intention is, blah, blah, blah. But this is what I don't understand, because all of the generation before us, they're highly intelligent, right? So they understand medicine. Like, they understand where medicines come from.
Yeah.
Especially your parents. Your parents are extremely qualified, respected individuals. I've met both of them, have nothing but love and respect for both of them, right? What do you think happens whenever, and I've seen this happen so many times, really, really close to me as well. Parents will have opinions on other people and other people's kids.
Yeah. And
the opinions will be very liberal in the sense of like, no, alhamdulillah, like, don't judge, blah, 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 etc. But the moment it concerns their kids,
yes,
there's this barrier that magically appears of like, no. When it comes to my kids, things are different. What do you, like, have you had this conversation of like, guys, this is just like any other medicine. Other medicines are made by sourcing raw ingredients. Yeah. And usually they're put together and there's an end result.
Yeah. We have had that conversation, but it's not actually have we had that conversation? I don't think we have, because that's just generally understood. But it's not the fact that this is another medicine. It's just that this is a dodgy medicine or an inferior medicine, or this is a.
But isn't that just marketing? Isn't that just the whole diamonds are a girl's best friend, buy a diamond? Isn't that just lack of research and education on the topic?
It's preconceived opinions, driven by fear. And
go back to that magical word, eh?
Yeah, because honestly, I think fear is the biggest controller of human life ever. Like people don't realize it, but we're driven by fear all the time. Like we do things, we avoid things, we have opinions because we fear what others will think or what society will think of us, or what will it mean for us, or what will it mean for my future, etc., etc. So cannabis, I don't want to be seen as prescribing cannabis because I'm afraid, because I would be afraid of what others would say about me being a cannabis doctor, or what would others say about my son or my daughter who is also in this space, who then, so it's that fear-based response that's been just driven into people, man. Like you'd be surprised, like society these days, 100%, it's all, I believe, driven by fear. And that's what was used in the marketing. That's what we saw in COVID. That's what we saw with cannabis back in the day when it was, criminalized. It's all the same thing. So even if you do mentally, if you say 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 = 2. This is another medicine, but it's
got a connotation attached to it, right?
I give you an example. This is a real life example, right? So my mum was talking to a friend at work, right? So, and he was asking her about her family and stuff, and so she told him that my daughter is a pharmacist.
Yes.
And my younger daughter is a dentist. And my middle child is doctor.
Yeah.
Right?
With a great van.
And then but so what kind of doctor is he?
The magical question.
Right, the magical question. So she went for a period of time where she was saying, "Oh, he's an urgent care doctor, like the old doctor. Right? He's an urgent care doctor." Right? So then she tried the other one, like, "Oh, he runs the cannabis clinic."
Yeah.
So the guy cracks up laughing because you've got a lady there who's like respected in her company, wearing the headscarf. She's been in that company for 20 plus.
Her son runs a company for stoners. That's his perception, right?
Yeah. So then, and she's very particular about the events that she attends and respect and stuff. And her son runs the cannabis clinic. It's kind of ironic a little bit.
What?
So anyway, like just to finish the story.
Yeah.
So he laughed, but then she felt ashamed to have said that in front of him because it was embarrassing, because she was afraid of that judgment. Now she looks bad because she thinks that this person is laughing, and that laugh means that
you're doing something wrong.
It's wrong and it's silly and it's inferior. So then it becomes, it's a fear of that judgment. And so then she, I don't think she'll say that again.
It's that weird pioneering stage though, right? It's the weird thing of like you doing something for the first time. See, this is where I suppose in a way I grew up differently, where my dad always used to tell me like, be a cleaner, but be the best. Like, I don't care what you do with your life, but do your best to excel at it, right? I thankfully wasn't dealt with you can be anything you want so long as it's a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, right? But a more serious question. You and I have known each other for a long time, right? We used to go pray together. We've
butter chicken together,
we've shared some stuff.
Mountain biking together.
100%, man. We've falling, freaking scraping, martial arts, the whole 9 yards. I'll ask you a personal question.
Yeah, you can ask any personal question you want now, man.
How did you, because I've struggled with the same thing in business, right? Where at the end of the day, I honestly, genuinely, hand on heart, I do not care what anyone else on the face of this earth thinks about me and what I do. The people that I do care about, my parents, my siblings, my wife. But even with those people, if I know that what I'm doing is right, they don't have to agree with what I do if I believe in what I'm doing.
Sure.
But I also reconcile what I do whenever I am having a conversation with the big guy upstairs, whenever I am having a moment of internal thinking of like, hey, this is what my intention is behind this action. I know what my intention is, right? And I know where I'm trying to get to. And therefore my conscience is clear. So I don't have any feelings of guilt, etc. And these people might disagree with it for now, but I have to take this path because I know it's the right one.
Yeah.
How did you reconcile that within yourself? When you first got into this business, I'm sure you would have had some internal conflicts that you would have had to resolve, or there would have been thoughts where you would have sat down and reconciled and had those conversations internally. How did you get past that, and what was your conclusion out of it? Did you come out of it thinking this helps people and it is medicinal and this is the angle that I'm taking and, you know, where I'm going, and therefore my slate is clean?
Not from that point of view. I never questioned it from that point of view. For me, it was always pretty clear that this is, you know, what's right and what's wrong. And I've got a fairly open-minded or liberal view of things, although I was raised in a fairly strict household. And maybe that's a result. Sometimes when you're too confined, then you become you can become into the opposite.
The pendulum swings the other way.
Yeah, it
right?
goes the other way, right?
Yeah.
Because so you got to be careful of that. But
fundamentally, you're still, I mean, I've known you for a long time. I'd say your fundamentals and your core have been fairly steady for as long as I've known you.
The ones that you know about. Yeah.
The ones that I know about, that's true. The ones that I know about, 100%.
Not the ones that are after 9 p.m.
Counter-Strike is off the table.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, you're right. But that's been an active decision. Like every person has to stop their life and actually say, what are my values and what do I live by? Because it's a very important question. Because otherwise there's so many options and you just get driven left, right, and center. But coming back to your question, it was more about, again, I bring it back to fear, because it wasn't really about the is this medicinal or is this right or wrong from a religious point of view. It was just about what it means for me and my profession. Because you got to remember, this is 2018, 2019, when pre-referendum, we don't even know if it's going to be legal from a medical point of view.
Yeah,
it was uncertain. It was like partly legal, partly had to go through specialists and what have you. So I was sitting there thinking, right, what is this going to mean for my profession moving forward? Because I'll be forever known as the cannabis doctor. Like, and now if you just Google my name, there's no hiding from it. It's like, okay, this guy. Cannabis,
you've decided to pioneer this aspect, and you've done it. And I think this is worth mentioning, right? Because not a lot of, I don't know if a lot of people know this, or you're a qualified doctor. You were, and you arguably still are, saving lives for a decent part of your career, and then you moved into this, and you have an Instagram handle that you're welcome to share with the rest of the world. It's a
white coat off.
Tell me what that means. What does white coat off mean, and why? What made you pick that?
Well, because the white coat is representative of the medical profession, but it's also enslavement. It's also a sign that you are.
I can hear every doctor just flipping tables right now. Like
it's a sign that you're controlled. You're part of the profession. You're adhering to the standards, our way or the highway. Well, fuck that. because it's not. You get one life, man. It's one life, one shot. And if you're going to play by someone else's rules, screw it. Yeah. It's too short. It's not worth it. So that's the conclusion that I reached when I was deciding. Because I pulled back from cannabis for a bit, actually. I set up the cannabis clinic. We had people coming in. Then I said, all right, guys, unfortunately, see you later. I'm out of here. I was making too much money for my position, and it was just too good, too comfortable to give up.
You mean as a doctor?
As a doctor.
Yeah.
And your position, all the nurses that I know of like me, right? In a professional way.
Hey.
And I got along really well with them.
To judge. Yeah.
I got along well with people coming to see me. I had and the company I was working for really liked having me work for them. I was quick. I was fast at what I was doing. I was efficient. And
you were fantastic at your job, and you were making really good money. And part of the reason why you pulled back from cannabis is because you already had a fantastic gig.
Yeah, I didn't need it.
So you still did it, though. You ended up doubling down. Why?
Because that decision is driven by a fear of losing that comfort, and also a fear of what other people would think about me doing this, and I ain't going to live my life based on fear.
Because you could have been the perfect little Middle Eastern child. right? My son's a doctor. He makes a shit ton of money.
Still am, man. Still am.
Look. For what it's worth, Hala Namu, if you ever watch this, first of all, I apologize for the swearing. But you've been, and again, I've known you for a long time, so I feel like I have the right to say this. You've been one of the most consistently stable people I've known my entire life. Because I've seen a lot of other people that you and I knew and grew up with or knew at uni, and they just did this with their lives, right? I fundamentally see you as the same person that I knew, but I see you as someone who has carved out parts of themselves and refined parts of themselves. Because if you think about it, even the way we were raised, right, the way a lot of people, alhamdulillah, again, genuinely, I did not fall into this trap, and for that I will be forever thankful. But a lot of the way that we raise our kids, even from a theological perspective, is fear-based. It's not love based. It's not positive. It's all like haram, haram, haram. You're being watched. How could you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you feel the noose around you tightening to the point where you just have to escape, right? And some people, unfortunately, completely swing the other way. And, they go from that to like, hail Satan, right? But how, to me, this is probably the most interesting part of your life, because I think other people, or even to an extent, I don't know how your parents see it, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen you swing the other way incorrectly. I feel like I'd be close enough to you that I could sit down. If I saw you completely swing the other way, the first thing I'd do is call you and be like, hey, what are you doing with your life? Like, I care about you.
So he went from like just a pure CBD to a full-on psychoactive product, the high concentration one, not the little intro one, but the bloody heavy-duty stuff that
you're gonna see some shit.
You're gonna see some shit, man. So and so this guy takes, I believe he took like a whole dropper full of this stuff, like a whole whack full, 25 milligrams. If I'd take 2-3 milligrams, I'd feel it. This guy took 25 milligrams. So then I got this panicked message or phone call like, oh, Waseem, there's been an error. This guy, like, please call him ASAP. See what's up. Like, make sure he's not jumping off a cliff or something, you know?
Give him a call and the guy's like, assalamu alaikum.
So I gave him a call. Yeah. I said, oh, hey, man, it's Dr. Waseem from the Cannabis Clinic. How you doing? He's like, hey, man. I was like, I honestly took the wrong medicine. It's like, yeah, you guys gave me the wrong medicine, man. I can feel it. I never felt so happy in my life. Actually, I want to come back and get some more from you. Can you prescribe this to me again?
Whereas you wouldn't have that with Panadol.
You'd be in the hospital, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But we actually had a case. We had a lady who we told her, take 0.1 mil, right? Which is like the tiny, tiny part of the dropper, an older lady. So she took it. Nothing happened. Went again. And just kept going and going and going. And then she'd had way too much. She started hallucinating in her car. That one we had to get her an ambulance to take her to the hospital. And all that happened was she just spent a day or 2 days in hospital, seeing funny things, maybe a few relatives who don't exist anymore, and, a few funny cats walking on the ceiling.
Having some visions.
Yeah, and then it just settled down and it went away. But coming back to your point about consistency and life and stuff, and yeah, it's one of those things where people have to stop and question yourself. How are you making choices? How are you living your life? Yeah. And are you living it? Are you living like what is the version or the headspace, the image, the vision that you have of what a good life to you looks like, what success to you looks like? That's a question that people have to stop and ask themselves, because what good to you is different to what good and a good life is for someone else. For you, it might be running Verum Digital. That is the vision of success, or it might be growing Verum. For another person, it might be raising a family and being a stay-at-home mum. Yeah. For another person, it might be I want to actually work from Bali all the time, sit on a beach and do 2 hours of work a day. And
for Andrew Tate, it'd be very different. Yeah, I 100% agree that the the vision of success, and this is the danger that people have with social media and all of the other bullshit, is we end up trying to vicariously live our lives through other people, right?
Totally. But if you don't know where you're heading for, then you can't make decisions. And the most important thing is to make those decisions boldly, so that you're not allowing being scared or fear to run your life. Because worst case scenario, you lose your degree, lose your house, on the road, like, come on, man. Like, life is too short to be afraid of that shit.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, right? And he runs a business, and he gave me a call, and he's like, "Hey, man, things are really tough right now, and everybody goes through tough times in business, right? You've been through your fair share, I've been through my fair share." And he turns around and he goes, "How do you stay positive?" Because he called me up, and he's like, and he wasn't in a good space. And I said, "Dude, if you lost everything today," so I'm just going to ask you a hypothetical. Let's assume we lost everything. I was like, if I lost everything today, if I lost Verum, if I lost the house, if I lost the car, if I lost everything, it wouldn't change my level of happiness. Genuinely. Because I know that I got myself to this point, right? Obviously with the help of Allah, and I know I can get myself to that point again. So there's no fear of getting it back. Not that the stuff matters in the first place, right? And I would have my family. I'd have my wife. I'd have my kids. I'd have my parents, etc. There's no fear of me starting again. It's totally fine. So if you lost everything today, right, you built it. But if you lost all of that, what do you actually lose? You just lose stuff. You lose cladding. You lose timber. You lose some electrical wiring, some wheels, an engine. So what? Because we've all started at zero. It's not like your dad gave you a $3 million loan to start the cannabis clinic, right? You would have started off the back of your own work.
Yeah. You just chucked $1,000 in there.
Yeah.
I remember that day. You needed to get started, transfer $1,000 into the bank account.
This, yeah, because it was a requirement, right? When you set up a business bank account, it's kind of like bring some money in, but also you have to show us where that money came from.
Yeah. That's another thing as well. Like just watching people's reaction, or from a business point of view to what we do. It's interesting, man. But yeah, so we started the clinic or the business, and then we just put $1,000 in there to pay for subscriptions and various things, like to get it rolling, and then it just took off from there.
I remember how there's so many naive decisions that I look back on now. I'm like, I wish I could slap myself, right? But you learn from those things. It's funny because sometimes your staff probably do this as well. You get asked whenever you're having a pay rise conversation, whenever you're having a conversation about something.
What conversation?
A pay rise conversation. Oh, you don't
what
have
is
this. Whenever, what I'm saying is a lot of staff, your team, they don't know the actual cost of running a business. Like the burn rate.
Yeah. It's massive, man.
You sit down and they're like, well, I mean, it's just lights that you pay for, isn't it? And some power. And you're like, I wish. Can we please swap places? Because hourly, you're paid more than I am right now.
Yes.
But it's a catch-22. Look,
That is true, because that's what people think, right? And what you don't realize is that you actually end up having to reinvest everything back into what you're doing.
100%.
If you want to grow and have it so that it grows and it continues in that trajectory, you end up with less flexibility or less cash or less ability to.
Yep.
You would be, from that point of view, better off. I would be better off just working.
Being a doctor.
Being a doctor, especially in this day and age, man. Like, there's such a shortage right now that literally with one phone call from here, I could
have a lot of zeros in the bank account.
I could make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I'd be sorted, man. Like, you pay off your mortgage and just live comfortably, and then you could go and just work a couple of days a week.
Dude, I went to Mercy Hospital the other day. I had to swing by there for a scan, and they have a little doctor section. Yeah. I saw the cars parked there. They're doing okay. It's okay. They're doing okay. I think tapping onto that, yeah, it's true. You do have to put everything back into. But dude, 2 weeks ago I was sick as a dog, like proper sick. Right, not man flu, but man flu times 10. And I get up and I'm barely able to stand, and I'm off to work. And I was like, well, what do you mean? You're sick. Stay home. I have meetings. I don't have a choice. I can't stay home. Have bills to pay, have meetings, have obligations towards other people.
Yeah.
You know, so people think that it does come with this level of flexibility, but the amount of sacrifice that you have to put through, time away from family, time away from even time working when you shouldn't be working, is insane. But
it is, but it's fun.
It is, yeah. I don't know what it is. It is addictive, 100%. I wouldn't do anything else. If somebody came to me today and gave me a job on a silver platter that made me 10 times more money than I make today versus what I do right now, I'd pick what I do right now.
Yeah.
It's not the money that's the driver.
Yeah, so what is the driver for you then?
That's a really deep question. I think we have a limited time on Earth. I think everyone's time is limited. Everyone's got an expiry date, right?
Yes. Stamped on your butt,
yeah,
on your butt, bro.
100% on your way in. You've got a best before date. There are things that I really want to do. Initially, there are things that I want to do for my parents.
Yes.
And I want them to enjoy it before they get too old.
Sure.
To enjoy it. Yeah. Right? So there are fundamentally things, and eventually in these podcasts, etc., I will explicitly share what these visions are, because I think once you put them into the universe, then things will go towards that direction. And alhamdulillah, they are going towards that direction. I've got no complaints. There are fundamental things that I want to do for my parents. And then me and Da are both actually really, really passionate about philanthropy. So I feel like my time is limited in the world. I want to raise really, really good, strong kids to make an impact in the world. And I want to leave this planet, however long or short this trip may be, having made an impact. And it doesn't have to be an impact where I'm remembered. I'm not interested in that sort of stuff. But I want to use the success and the wealth and the time and the knowledge and the skill set that I'm given in a way that I feel leaves the world better than when I initially arrived. Surrounded by other people that think the same way. I have very little interest in, and I'm not saying I won't, have a nice car or any of those things, but material things don't really attract me because I've tested them. They don't bring happiness, right? It's inherently meaningless.
Sure.
So I do want to make a difference, and I want to surround myself with people that think the same way. So for example, you being one of those people, Shane being another person, there's a few people in my life that I look up to, that I learn a lot from, that hopefully learn a thing or two from me, that I want to continue surrounding myself with, and then us collectively do things that can make a positive impact. Some people have their time to give. Some people have their money to give. Some people have their knowledge to give. But to me, true happiness has always been in helping others find their happiness. And there's so much more that I want to do with the time that I have. And then I want that legacy to be something that hopefully my kids aspire to follow.
Yeah.
So yeah, part of that's growing the company significantly. Part of that is doing things that are disruptive and innovative in my space, not accepting the status quo.
Yeah.
And that includes making a shit ton of mistakes in the process.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the quick and short of it. What about you?
Cool. Well, that's a pretty deep answer there.
Yeah, sorry. What's your driver?
420, bro.
But the end result, what's it look like for you?
So that when it's all over, we can all take exit 420.
Yeah, that's a good exit to take. They stopped making those signs. They stopped making exit 420 signs in the States because the signs kept getting stolen.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, the signs so there's a lot of their highways won't have exit 420. It'll be 419 and then 421.
Well, we've got it because we're on exit 420.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, Takapuna is exit 420.
Oh, that's
Eastman Road. Yeah,
that's cool.
Hard
I
out.
did not realize that.
Yeah, we're looking for a new space, a new premise at the moment
Okay.
to move into because the current one's too
So
small.
this is a shout out to all commercial agents in Takapuna.
That's correct. If anyone's got any commercial property, then please call 0800 CBD oil.
How big of a space do you need?
300, 400 square meters.
300 to 400 square meters.
Yeah. So there's a property on Lake Road we're looking at, but unfortunately it's not 420 Lake Road. That would be the ideal. I need to go and find out who lives at 420 Lake Road, knock that door and say,
be like, hey, listen, let me share my vision with you.
Give me your land, your property.
Just roll like, yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
Oh, man.
And my green van.
We're gonna get that answer out of you. I want to peel some of the layers behind and figure out what your personal motivations are behind things. We've had these conversations in the past.
Yeah.
All right. It'd be good we're going to do another episode because I think this is way too short for my liking. I want to do, but also I understand that people aren't going to watch, 4-hour-long podcasts unless it's Joe Rogan. I want to get you back if you're open to it within the next month.
Yeah, I'm open to that.
And we'll have that.
Do I need to bring anything next time?
We'll spend the rest of the day playing Counter-Strike. Bring that plant. It'd be nice to put that plant smack dang in the middle. But
just the plant.
Well, I mean, the staff will part. If you need beta testers,
yes,
I'm sure there's staff in the office that'll happily beta test product. But if you had to sign off today's podcast and tell us the biggest misconception or the thing that you think nobody knows about cannabis or medicinal cannabis, what thought would you leave us with?
The biggest misconception about medicinal cannabis.
Like if there's one thing that you would want people to take away from medicinal cannabis or your industry in general that you think is not broad knowledge and you wish that more people knew, what would it be?
It would be for people to recognize and appreciate that the plant is part of our body and our design, and the human body and the cannabis plant were meant for each other. That's something that a lot of people don't know. They look at it as a plant.
That's something I don't know.
But it's actually a part of us. We're linked inherently to the cannabis plant. There's something unique about cannabis that makes it linked to us. And it's because each person right here, me, you, our gentleman standing here in front of us, we all make cannabis inside our own bodies. Compounds that are called endocannabinoids. Endo, internal, cannabinoids, cannabis. So you're making cannabis right here, man. You're a cannabis synthesizing machine, 420 baby sitting right next to me, man, coming right from the top there, from the brain.
No, does it lead to hair loss? I had no idea though.
Totally, man, and that's why. So that because that system, that's why cannabis is so powerful on the human body, and so potentially therapeutic on it, and that's the link between cannabis, the plant, and the human body, inherently linked. It's almost like it is. It is not almost like it is that the human body has been designed with this, with features of this plant, with these chemicals in mind to work on it.
See, then it must be good because we make MSG and that shit is amazing, right?
That's all.
Look, thank you very much for making the time to pop by and be our guest at episode 3 of the Falafel Framework. Episode 3 of the Falafel Framework. I want to get you back on episode 4. I'm not going to have any more guests until you come back on because I have about 150 questions that I want to ask you. I want to go more into detail about the plant itself. I would love if you could bring some case studies or some mental case studies that we could go through. I want to be educated. So the next time we sit down, our main focus is going to be cannabis, the plant, and how it's going to revolutionize the medical industry and how it's helping people's quality of life. And then I'm going to get you back for another episode where I really want to take a deep dive into your personal life. And I want people to know about you a bit more. Maybe I'll have some cringe photos that we've all taken at some point with chest guards and kicking pads.
That's fine, man. Happy to come back and
the
share.
vision.
For sure, anytime.
Thank you so much,
No
guys.
worries.
That was Waseem, Dr. Waseem. I've got to keep it real, man. Dr. Waseem from the Cannabis Clinic. Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find us on cannabisclinic.co.nz. Alternatively, 0800 CBD oil.
Is there a coupon code?
Just email and we'll figure that out.
Okay,
Email us,
done.
we'll figure that out.
Done. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you coming in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Deuces.